Hello, everyone. Today you have the founder of Grasshopper, John Lin, and I'm his Chief Technology Officer at Grasshopper. Hello, John. How are you doing?
How you doing, TK? Good to be here.
Well, thank you very much. I'm sure Marcelo is very happy that we're doing this for him. And, just so you know, we're talking in front of a bunch of teenagers from the ages of 13 to 17 years old. And Marcelo just wants us to talk about, our experiences with growing Grasshopper, kind of where you found it, when you founded it, and how you've kind of grown to what it is today. And then, eventually we'll talk about where you're going to take us or where we are taking us in the next 5 to 10 years, or where do we see the markets going. And I just want to give a quick overview. We are a high frequency trading company, and you guys obviously can take out your phones and Google that term, HFT. And essentially, we trade on major exchanges around the world, like the Tokyo Stock Exchange or the Japanese Osaka Securities Exchange. And what we do there are companies are providing prices to these exchanges so that investors and traders who want to buy and sell can go on those exchanges, and they're most likely trading against us or a company similar to us. So now back to you, John. How did you think of starting a company like this back in 2006, and over the years have sort of grown the company of two people to where we are today of 70 people and have made millions of dollars along the way?
Well, let's bring this back to. That's a great question, and I'll try to answer that. But let's bring this back to a spot where I think 13 and 17-year-olds might be, even as amazing as this particular group of 13 to 7-year-olds and 17-year-olds are. Think about it this way. What we do is really pretty unique, and this is what I'd like you to understand about what we do. When you go out and you talk to anyone around who's working, and you'll say, okay, you have a job, what do you do? Effectively, they generally service somebody else and provide accounting services, legal services, et cetera, like that, or they produce a product. They make widgets, cars, anything, ping pong balls. We don't do any of that. Okay, effectively, in a way, we provide a service to exchanges to provide liquidity, but you don't have to worry about that. But we actually decide what we want to do ourselves at any time, and that's it. So we have no customers and no clients. And that's one thing that's very interesting about the world that we're in. I think the most important thing I would say for you teenagers in coming up or listening to this lecture is like, what can I learn from these two guys that I couldn't learn elsewhere? And I think we can stay more focused too around that. But anyway, I'll get to your story. I spent 15 years as a pit trader, independent pit trader, and then I spent 15 years as CEO of Grasshopper. And we built ourselves up from nothing in the Grasshopper days, the second half of my career, into around a 60, 70-man team that really does around 2 to 3% of all the business that's done in Japan in futures. And that's a lot. So that means we trade hundreds of millions of dollars worth of stock or financial instruments a day. That's something that maybe is kind of fun to get your head around.
So, what got you started in doing this in the first place, in the format that we're in? When you first started, did you imagine that you're going to be running a company that's 60 or 70 people, or could you have thought of us moving to where we are today?
Great. I would say that the thought that got me started in 2006, in my second half of my career, running a digital company, is kind of like the thought that got me started in 30 years ago when I was 20 in trading. And that was, I needed, and this is, I hope, find some resonance with you all, is at those ages, I just wanted to do what was right to do at the time. At age 20, it was, I wanted to go out, I wanted to have merit, I wanted to compete, I wanted to get into a pit full of people and see where I ended up. And that was my right, the right thing to do at the time. At the age of 35, it was just to kind of move along in a way that was all about discovery and thinking about how a massive shift that happened in my industry, what it meant for the new type of trader, right? I was the old type of trader for 15 years. What did it mean for the new type of trader? So that was really just this journey of discovering things and thinking about stuff and just going one little bit, going from tic-tac-toe to checkers to chess to go. It's like, just try to take that extra step about like, what does this mean? That 80 years of the old way of doing something, which was called at that time open outcry trading. That's when all those guys are yelling in the pit, suddenly moves through technology into a whole new way of trading. So, whenever you guys see points like that, those are very important points to mark.
When you said moving from the old way of trading, you having been in the pit and, sort of fighting your way to get a good position in the pit to making trades. And I'm sure there's lots of pictures online that you can see about that, to sitting at a desk and clicking a mouse and trading and evolving the company from a trading company that was manually trading, basically leveraging a combination of humans and computers, to evolving this company to leveraging a lot of technology whereby 99.9% of your orders that you send to the exchange today are automatically sent by robots or computers or algorithms. Did you see that happening at the very beginning, or was this an evolution over time, over the first 5 years of you running the company, or the first 10 years of you running the company? And
so I think that's great. Let's just hold it. Let's keep it a little bite-sized for these young teens, right?
Sure.
If anyone ever tells you that they see perfectly clear, that far down the road, then I think that you have to question their track record, because no one really sees that clear. You can have an inkling, and I think that it was right to have an instinct. And many of us can say we had an instinct that was going to move to become heavily electronic, heavily automated, and now we say like, ultra low latency, artificial intelligence, all kinds of things like that. But maybe if you could look that far down the road, your granularity or the accuracy of what you see might be, I don't know, 25%, if you're lucky. So it's something, right? It's not nothing. It's not insignificant, but it's important to know that you don't know everything. And I think that you all should be okay with not knowing everything. As you grow up and you start graduating high school, going into college, you don't know everything. You're not supposed to know everything. And there's no prizes for knowing everything, because it's just not something that happens, because the world is too dynamic. So really what your job is to ask the right questions, which requires you to think about what the right questions are, be brave enough to ask them, to go out and be resourceful and get those answers to those questions, and then figure out what you can do with you and the group that you're in to act on them. So that's always the right thing to do. And that's kind of what I meant earlier, right? The thematics of what we do doesn't matter if we're talking about high frequency trading or old school trading.
I think you're right. I think a lot of times we find ourselves trying new things that, we couldn't find a book that actually explained to us how to do it, right? A lot of things that we've actually built in Grasshopper was something that a group of us sort of got together, did the research, and did some trial and error. I would say, 90% of our projects, fail, and what you got to do is fail fast. You got to recognize that it doesn't work this way, and it's time for you to try another thing, right? And I'm sure there was a lot for that.
I love that point, TK. Let's just take a quick pause right there, because, for these 13 to 17-year-olds, most of them have never been outside of a situation where there's always a right answer, right? So you guys are in what, like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. You're almost always, except maybe at the very top grades, you're almost always being judged on what the right answer is. And suddenly, like in your 20s or 30s, as you start going out into the real world, you may not have a right answer, or you might be required to come to many wrong answers until you have inspiration to figure out maybe a better path. And that's something that, as TK is saying, you really have to get used to, and you might as well get used to it now. Because those kids and those people that always insist on dogmatically being right or wrong, dogmatically means you don't like to listen to outside opinions. You have one path. That's not a good way to be. So yeah, so even though you're in your teens now, you can think about the fact that we're at a part in the world which is actually super exciting. We're at a part in the world where we're pushing limits so hard that there's a lot of things we don't understand, which means we fail a lot. To many people, that's a downside. Actually, it's an upside. It means that you're at an age of exploration.
Yeah, I think it's it's pretty interesting that we evolved from a trading company to a technology company to a data company, and now obviously we're leveraging a lot of AI, as you were mentioning over there. I mean earlier on this podcast over here. And what's next? Where do you see us going in the next 10 years?
Well, I know with perfect clarity where we're going in 10 years. I just need to be cautious about such people. Actually, what I would say is I really don't know. I think that there's a lot of things that make predicting the next 10 years difficult. But in terms of where 13 to 17-year-olds should look at it, I think that we're in a long-term trend, an age of amazing progress, and we're probably reaching an inflection point that I think humanity is going to break through. That's my optimistic view. And when I say breakthrough, what I mean is like a realization of exponential technologies, and understanding that we're all in this together, that we have to do something in a concerted way. We have to kind of lose things like our scarcity mindset, et cetera. And all things that the generations in front of you have sort of realized, you know what, we kind of knew how we played the game wasn't really right, but we played it anyway. We played it past exhaustion, and now we realize that the game is up. And more people are realizing we'll play a different game. We're sorry. Like, let's try. That may not go so easily, but optimistically, I think that it'll be interesting. We're a very hardy species. So I think that there's a lot to look forward to if you all have the right mindset, right? And the mindset isn't to be perfectly predictive. The mindset is to be predictive and think always about where the general trend is going, but to just be nimbly adaptive along the way and have fun, right? I'm sort of in my, third career now, and I've survived through so many different things. So like, it's very important to make sure that you're having fun along the way.
Yeah, I think we try to keep it pretty lighthearted at work, but a lot of things that we do are pretty serious and quite complex. And I remember one time when we talked about, you asked me, why can't we make these complex things simple, right? And I think it's still hard for us to do it, but we try to do that every single day. Whether it's communication and sharing information and knowledge with everybody, right? So we're I think sharing of information and working in a team on better communication is one of the better tools that you could have as you're going on this journey itself. And one of the things I found out is that, when we did trading very early on, we could probably do it as an individual. And in fact, that's the way we ran the company in the earlier years. But I think as we kind of realized this over the last 5 years, which is the company is roughly 15 years old right now. In the last 5 years, we realized that a lot of these complex problems that we're solving, we need to solve them in teams. And I think, for all the 13 to 17 years old, I think when you are entering your next phase in life, I think a lot of things that you're going to have to work with is solving problems as a group of people as opposed to as individuals. And if you look at things like what crypto currency is bringing into this equation, it's actually creating something as a group and not as individuals or as one government, right? Where do you think cryptocurrency plays into this? I know, everyone here may not know, but Grasshopper also dabbles into cryptocurrencies, and we've tried to market make into those markets as well, and we try to support those communities by making some of our investments in that field. But John, what do you think cryptocurrency is for these 13 to 17 years old in the next 10 years?
For sure, it's definitely something that they should watch out for. Metaphorically, when you think about what crypto represents, to me, it represents a new way of doing something that is a hell of a lot better than it used to be done. And it's almost mind-numbing to a person of my generation and above to think that how we grew up, your elders grew up, can just disappear like that. But then when you talk to a guy like me, that's happened to my life multiple times, so I'm used to it. And that's one of the reasons that it's easier for me to adapt. So as you grow up, you should be looking at all these things as almost a new framework that's improved, that has all kinds of merits associated with it, but is also potentially usable for abuse. So you even though these things are magnificent paradigm frameworks for progressing, I consider Bitcoin almost an engine of truth. It doesn't mean that whole segment of how society is going isn't ripe for abuse and does require your philosophical participation, right? Everyone who participates in this has to make a mental calculation and a mental commitment to supporting what those things mean. And these are very dangerous inflection points because I don't even know if a 13 to 17-year-old actually handles cash money anymore. But if you did, if you hold that up, you have to really think about it's just your faith in that. It's all of our cumulative, spontaneous, sustained faith in that bill that gives it value. And thus, we move to a world where everything is very validated by merit as you move forth in the tech world. That's the ideal. But we all have to be vigilant that doesn't always work that way. So there's some very real dangers that are associated with all of these very real progresses that we have as we move forth. In the end, I think you have to be excited about it, but understand what's going on and understand why it is a better alternative. And the only way you can understand that is to understand a little bit of history with people older than yourselves, your parents, your grandparents, and see how they look at it. And then hopefully as you progress, you'll realize, man, people will hold on to something for so long, even though it's not the best thing to do. And remember that. That's a huge trading lesson, right? It's a huge life lesson. So I think crypto, it's great. It's definitely superior. Blockchain is superior technology. We have the computing power to deal with this effortlessly. That doesn't mean it's going to change. Right? And then watch this experiment in real time as you become from 15 to 20 to 25 to 35. And remember back and be like, wow, maybe it went fast. Maybe it took a super long time, and think about why. So those are the lessons I think are most interesting. Of course, other than, learn why these cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies are assets. It's an amazing thing. It's effectively an engine of truth protecting your liberty. That's what we hope, anyway.
Yeah, I think I'm interested in it because I think it's a technology that enables everybody, right? And it's something that's not controlled by one particular government or one particular group of people. A government is, maybe 200 people, right? And I think that kind of speaks a lot about how we do things in Grasshopper, because we do it as a collective and we work together as a team to make a lot of these types of decisions. And I think it's hard for us to not encourage large groups of people to work together on a complex problem, because the simple problems are already mostly all done, right? I mean, as in the space that we're in, right? So my point here is that I think one of the skills that we find that we have to constantly refine is working in a team is communication, and it is one of those things that John, you really encourage us to do a lot within the company, and it's something that we continue to struggle with because it's not easy, especially with people coming from different backgrounds and different places and whatnot. I think we only have a couple minutes left. Is there any one or two things that you want to mention to everybody before we end this?
Sure. I'll just continue with what you said. So what TK was saying, and he alluded to this before, was everyone wants simplicity. So, Einstein said, make everything as simple as possible, but not any simpler, which meant that oversimplification of something is dangerous. You want to get it to the exact right level. So that means you go to the appropriate level of complexity, as simple as possible, but to the appropriate level of complexity. And as TK also said just a minute ago, all the simple problems are done. We're working on tougher and tougher problems, all of us, in whatever capacity, right? Even if it's just being a citizen. And that means that one of the most important skills that all of you all have to have as you grow is understanding the most complex variable that you're going to encounter. And that's people. So, I will I'd like to end it there, is that don't underestimate, even though we're moving to a digital and decentralized and, work from home kind of world, don't underestimate how much effort it takes to win people and how big of a victory that is in your endeavors. And how much you need to have people and ideas and diversity of opinions and challenges and support to get to the solutions to solve the problems of a very big intent, right? Which is solving those complex problems that are all around us. So, as much as technology is playing a pivotal role in changing the future, don't forget that people are such a huge deal, right? And that is the ultimate complexity. That's the ultimate challenge.
Well, thank you very much, John. Appreciate your time. If you guys want to check us out, we are at grasshopper.asia.com. That's John Lin, our founder, and my name is Tan T-Kiang. Appreciate it. And look us up.
Good luck.